Hello and welcome to episode 7 of The Last Night's Watch. Now we're going to be discussing the latest episode, Mockingbird. We're also going to be hearing from Elle Fanning about whether or not she watches Game of Thrones. We're also going to be hearing from Sejora. Finally, we're going to be hearing from Podrick. Now you may have noticed that I'm not Matt Risley, but I'm sitting in for him while he's off swanning off around Cannes. Don't worry, he's asking people in Cannes if they watch Game of Thrones, so that stuff will go in future episodes. And hello Matt Risley, we miss you. But enough of that nonsense. What did you think of the episode?
Yeah, great. Really sumptuous episode. There's so much going on. Again, as we're sort of getting towards the tail end of the series, we start off amazingly with Tyrion and Jaime just like again doing the thing which Game of Thrones very rarely does, which is to pick up where the other episode left off, which he hasn't done very much. And I just love that scene with Jaime and Tyrion. Him just like,
I mean, for me, every single scene with Tyrion in this episode was a masterwork. Like the level of performance, it's just amazing. What did you think, Matt?
I literally thought there wasn't a wasted scene, and where sometimes obviously you get those slightly fillerish scenes, you're a tiny bit bored, but this one there was just no waste at all, and especially obviously Tyrion's kind of kept bringing it all back together, and there was kind of like this theme of sort of trust going through this episode, I thought, and obviously his particularly sort of brought that together. So
I loved his wish a sense of adventure thing with his brother, like going, is that when he realised that obviously this, you know, he can't fight, Jaime can't fight, he's got one hand, like, you know, what was his plan with this? It seemed, because he always, like, it's a bit strange because it always seems like Tyrion has a plan and Tyrion knows exactly what he's doing, whereas with this it was like, dude, what was your plan? Well, or was he just angry?
He's got so much faith and respect and love for his brother. He just kind of, Jaime's always sorted it out. I think he just thought, oh, you know, even one-handed, he can sort it out. But then once that sort of realisation hit, and then, you know, obviously he reaches out to Bronn, and that's another great scene.
That's horrible.
It was heartbreaking.
It was such a brilliant scene in the sense of where you think it's going and what you think, oh, this is actually quite cliched, and when Bronn sort of does him over, you think, oh, this is actually quite cliched, but then actually the way that Tyrion reacts to it, and he's like, that's why I liked you in the first place.
I cried twice in this episode. That's how much I loved it. And that scene was one of them when they're holding hands, and oh my God, so moving, so powerful.
And that scene also for me tied into a few other things in this episode where, and this is what kind of I love about Game of Thrones and what it does so well, is it kind of is that sort of realistic fantasy basically, so you don't just get these kind of stand-up knights who'll come and do anything for honour. He's like, I like you because you sort of, you know, you're
an arsehole.
You look out for yourself.
And,
and I thought, so...
We saw the mountain for like one of the first times we've seen him for a while. I just sort of a bit problem with that.
Actor.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I sort of didn't really recognise him. But then I had a bit of a problem with that scene because Cersei was like, "Oh, you're on good form." You just fought like 8 meth heads. He's like, "Oh, I see you're on good form." It's like I could have killed them.
Yeah, I think we all could. Yeah, and the other thing that, I don't know, it's not a big deal, but the whole, oh, thanks for getting here so quickly. The travel in this show, like,
it's like anywhere they travel in Skyrim.
Exactly.
That was as soon as that came though, as soon as I realised, obviously, okay, that's the mountain. Then that's all we've heard all series a couple of times from Oberyn is, you know, what the mountain has done, and you know all this different stuff, and the horrible stuff in the first episode about, or maybe no, not first episode, when he was talking to Cersei about, you know, the mountain split my sister in half.
That might have been the first episode.
Oh really?
Right,
okay,
but anyway,
and then you just heard all this stuff, and you just think, now they're in the same place. Like Oberyn is hurting. Like every time he talks about it, he starts to cry almost. Like. Something's gonna go down, and then obviously, boom, it does. Like, what did you think of that?
That scene was incredible. I'm going to mention the books, but in a good way, because I don't remember, but in the first episode of Last Night's Watch, I complained because when Oberyn and Tyrion first met, there was a story missing, like a wonderful moment where he tells him the story about when they came to King's Landing and saw Tyrion for the first time, and you know the thing about Cersei tweaking his cock.
So that was the story then.
Exactly. And I was sad it was missing because I thought it revealed a lot about Cersei, and the fact that Jaime protected Tyrion, the fact that Jaime loved Tyrion even when he was a bait, you know, and the fact that they've moved it to that scene, in my opinion, makes it better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like, because it sort of gave him a reason to do it, and like, you saw Tyrion's reaction to that story was just horrible. And I loved Oberyn's thing, like, you know, I looked at you and you're just a baby.
So good.
It was, yeah, that was definitely probably like the most moving thing I think I've seen in Game of Thrones. Because I don't know if, like, I mean, obviously, yeah, there've been moments been moved, but probably not as much as this episode, I don't think.
I don't really know anything about Oberyn that much, so I don't really know what kind of, is he a really good warrior? Because Mountain be up 8 meth head, so.
Well, he seems pretty confident.
I know, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting clash.
Really was, this episode was kind of so packed with drama, especially because of that and the build up to that. It didn't feel like it was lacking anything, you know.
It's incredible. Like, I'm gonna make a bold statement, you guys. I think this might be my favourite episode of Game of Thrones
ever.
Really? Yeah.
It's definitely
the
my
amount
favourite
of
of
stuff
series.
in it. Like, we're going to talk about the Arya and the Hound stuff.
Yeah.
All of that was wonderful as well, and just superbly acted. And they've got my faith back, basically. The way that they're changing things from the book is very clever in this episode.
Yeah, I really liked the Brienne and Pod bits.
Yeah, well, that
was actually really, really good.
Absolutely, and that is one of the kind of cleverest things in the book. Brienne, oh God, it lasts forever. She's searching forever, and every time you get to Brienne chapter, you're just like, oh no.
Oh really?
But here, they just cut out so much bullshit, and they've moved it right along. So that's really exciting.
And there's that awesome little scene with that little, I forget his name.
Hot Pie.
When he's talking about kidney pie, he just sits down and Brienne's just looking at him going, who's this little kid?
Yeah.
Why is he here?
Even that was moving, man.
Yeah,
like when he presented the direwolf biscuit, or what the hell it was.
Logistics. I was thinking like logistics, like, that ain't gonna last. Like, that's not gonna be in one piece by the time they find them.
No
it's gonna go mouldy.
Or
Pod's gonna eat it.
They are going to eat it on the way, aren't they? Come on.
Yeah. And that brings us quite nicely to Pod telling us what he'd like to see in a Game of Thrones movie. Take it away, Pod.
If you could sit down with George and request any scene or moment for your character, what would you ask for?
Well, that's a great question. If I could sit him down, I hope he's watching, I would just say, you know, have faith, keep him in there, and, you know, he's a good guy, he doesn't deserve to die.
Understandably, he wants to survive.
I love his accent as well, like really sexy Scottish accent.
Lovely voice. He was a really nice guy.
Have you seen the video of him online where he's singing The Rains of Castamere?
No, I haven't. Good.
That'll warm your britches. It's really, really good, actually.
Okay, nice.
But
so yeah, we mentioned Arya and the Hound, didn't we?
Yeah.
Let's get onto that stuff, because
that was
a lot
awesome.
of really good stuff
good.
There.
Just that amazing bit where she's just like, he can't be on my list. I don't know his name. and then the Hound goes, "What's your name?" And the guy just says his name. It's like, what did you think was gonna happen? 2 seconds later, you idiot.
It's just so good. It was just so well staged. Like I mean, it looks like a movie.
Yeah.
And they just cram so much into their 2 scenes as well. I love that first scene, and when you see Arya kind of learning from him, the way she even like sort of wipes the blade after the kill, and then the next scene was just so kind
I didn't think about that.
So kind of moving, and it was just like, oh.
One of the amazing things about Game of Thrones is that they can just throw on some villager, and he'll say something revelationary or moving or philosophical, and that whole little exchange with that guy and the way it ends, and like Arya saying, you know, what comes next isn't good or bad, it's just nothing, or whatever it was. It's all there in the books, obviously. It's just quality writing, but they have brought it over to the show without losing any of the impact.
I like the later scene as well. Then where you see, like, how hard did that guy bite him as well? By the way,
Like, do you remember when Arya was being taken to the Night's Watch?
Okay.
And there are those dudes in the cage.
Yeah.
And there's the guy with the sharpened teeth. Biter.
That was him.
That was him who jumped on Hound. So that's why he left such an impact. But it wasn't
it wasn't clear at all.
It wasn't clearly done.
And
actually, in the book, Biter actually attacks Brienne. So that is a change.
Okay.
And you know, is probably more of a nod for the fans or whatever. But and also the guy that Arya. That's named, that says his name, he's never named in the book, so that's a cool addition. There you go. That's my book corner.
And I think that's just another thing again about Game of Thrones. How in that second scene, you sort of when you sort of learn more about the Hound, and it's just like again how they can just kind of flip these characters for you and like just totally change the feelings about them.
Because he was talking so quietly as well.
And you just kind of they just and it always feels kind of believable as well. It doesn't feel like it's just a token kind of oh now they're trying to make him sympathetic. It always works, and it's like.
And it's little things in the performances, like when it cuts to that wide shot where Arya's sort of sorting out the wound, and he's just sort of pulling on his shirt, like as if to distract himself from the pain. Like just little touches like that in performance in the show, just wonderful. What an episode!
One of my favourite, because I love that little Robin kid. Like everything he does.
I hate him.
Everything he does just makes me piss myself laughing. Like when he talks, just like his intonation and stuff. I think that little act is brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And
everything he does just makes me laugh. And then there's that like sort of odd little scene with Sansa and him with the snow, and she's making Winterfell, and then slaps him, and you just think, oh god, this is really going to kick off now.
Yeah.
And then she kisses Lucky Charms.
Well, Littlefinger kisses her. Let's get that straight, because we don't want to get in trouble with Lysa. But a kind of very odd scene.
Really odd scene. Littlefinger's all over the place this series. Like I have absolutely no idea how I used to love that character. But like his ridiculous accent change in every single episode aside, like. That aside, like, what's his character doing? Like, he's so creepy when he says, like, "Oh, you're more beautiful than your mother ever was," and then kisses her. And then later on, then when we have, like, you know, probably our WTF moment is where, you know, like, what's her name?
Lysa. It's WTF for a couple of reasons. It's WTF for fans of the show because you know it's pretty extreme, like what's going to happen next. For fans of the book, there's someone that they blame for that event who isn't there, and they're not on their way. So unless they randomly pop up next week, they're going to very much change how that plays out.
So
that
is interesting.
Kind of interested in.
But that's another thing that this is what I'm saying with this Littlefinger like sort of trajectory is. Then so he'd done this really weird scene before where he kissed her. And like I never think that he does anything. Like I don't think he's ever caught out. So I think he did it, and he knew she could see. So maybe maybe that's actually why he did it then, and that's why he was being so creepy and did it, so he could get her close to the moon door, so he could sling her down there. I've only ever loved one woman, so maybe that's what it was. We've just worked that out here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry, Aidan Gillen, about your stupid accent, but you fooled me, and you're really good.
So we got a bit of Daenerys as well.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like a couple of awesome scenes from her. Like first of all, like nice little sexy little scene. Didn't get to see anything, but that's fine. Although you did get to see
Dario Naharis,
who has a fantastic arse. So that was alright. That was pretty good.
Quite a good body all round.
And
really.
a weird little scene between him and Jorah the next morning, where you just think like Jorah's heart just broken. Like I felt really bad for him. He's like, she's in a good mood. Such a lad.
Bless him. But and then but he got a nice moment where she's like. Tell him I've changed my mind. Actually,
what do you make of that?
Tell him that you changed my mind for me.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, it's more like...
If I was him, I'd be like, to be honest, I know what you're doing, I'd rather have the sex.
But it kind of shows how much of a player Daenerys is. Because, like, she knows that
she's got these men just fawning after her.
Exactly. And so, she's playing both of them, so...
Poor Jorah.
Quite cool. Poor Jorah.
Yeah.
But speaking of Sid Jorah, he gave us a little Wester crossover. He told us what TV show he'd like to bring into the Game of Thrones universe, and here's that now.
It's transformed really television recently. It's on a really good roll. I'm sure I'm saying what other people have said, but I adored Mad Men and watched every single episode, and Breaking Bad recently. I think Breaking Bad would segue very neatly into Game of Thrones in lots of ways. But they just offer the chance to have stories unfold and get to know people more slowly in a way that there's always a sense in film, you know, whether it's an hour and a half or 3 hours long, that you sort of have to concentrate time in a way that you're allowed in a episodic series television. You can really let things unfold. and also sort of not quite know the ending. You know, I'm sure when they started Breaking Bad, they had no idea it was going to be the success that it was going to be. And the writers had to think quickly on their feet, you know. It's slightly different in Thrones because we're based on these existing novels. But yeah, no, I love those.
Another Breaking Bad.
Do you think people watch other? Well, he did say Mad. He started saying Mad Men, and then just went straight into Breaking Bad. But I thought his answer, you know, just in general about how you know TV is amazing right now, and it is like the cast, just the cast in general, like actors, it's drawing in like TV.
It's insane, and like I know this season has had its ups and downs, but I've got a feeling that when it gets to the end, when we look back at the whole thing, it's going to be like one of the all-time greats this season. I really do. It's
a big claim. Considering you said you'd lost faith in it a couple of episodes.
A couple of episodes ago.
This season's actually kind of been more consistent for me than some other Game of Thrones seasons. It's not necessarily the best, but I feel like it's moved at that more consistent pace, which was always a slight problem for me. I think like sometimes I felt like it was just a bit too slow burn, whereas I feel like there has been that kind of, it's been moving along, it's been tense. I've been kind of like always into it. So.
This is the first series I've watched because I came late to Game of Thrones, so I had 3 seasons to sit down and I absolutely devoured them in about a week. This is the first series I've had to watch week by week, and it's killing me. Like it's so hard to watch like that because like some people say that there's an argument that this is how you should watch TV because you're not taking everything in if you're sort of sitting down and watching it properly. But I disagree. I think when you watch it all in one big hit, you can see the pieces moving and things like that.
I think it really suits that.
It definitely does as well because like you see something happen in maybe episode 2 that has a payoff in episode 9 or something like that. Whereas you know. What do you do in your life from episode 2 to episode 9? Like so much can happen. You can have a baby, you can get married. Like that changes your perception of what you're watching. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like in season 2, the build, like Tyrion's, like all of his plans building to the Battle of Blackwater, and then like. You know, when the chains come up and, you know...
Exactly, yeah.
When you watch it in one go, it's like a movie, basically.
Because, he's going around doing all these bits and bobs and things like that, which, when you're watching it, you might think of really throwaway scenes, and actually you might come away from those episodes thinking, oh, that was a boring episode. Tyrion had nothing to do, when actually he had something really important to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe there is an argument for stuff like that.
And you noticed something on this episode that you hadn't noticed before?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was just imagining it or if I just hadn't been paying attention all the time I've been watching it, but... I actually noticed when I was catching up on the previous episode that, that the opening credits sort of landscape thing there it changed from episode to episode when you're getting new places to visit basically. So like the
whenever
big
there's a new
statue,
place, it adds to the map. So Bravos appeared last week, and like the coins rolling into the Iron Bank and stuff in the animation.
That's really interesting.
And it's really cool because obviously. In the books, they all open with maps, so that's their representation of the map system. Very cool. Anyway, enough about maps and that sort of geeky nonsense. You want to see Hollywood celebrities, so here's one. Elle Fanning talking about whether or not she watches Game of Thrones.
Got coming up Lowdown with Lena Headey and Peter Dinklage.
Yes.
Everyone we're meeting at the moment, we're actually asking them if they watch Game of Thrones and if they're a fan.
Yeah, all my friends are like obsessed with Game of Thrones, and I love it too. My sister particularly, she's like, she didn't see like the couple first seasons and stuff, but now she's like watching them all like rapid fire, like getting all caught up and like so obsessed. And so it was so fun. Like on that set we were like, oh, we have both the Game of Thrones, you know. And and in that movie I got to kiss Peter Dinklage, which is like that was like the coolest thing ever. That was very fun.
So that's about it for this episode of Last Night's Watch. Now some bad news. Game of Thrones is actually going on a break now, so it's not going to be back until the 2nd of June. So that means we're not going to be back until then either. So sorry about that. And more bad news. This is actually Gav's last show because he's going on holiday. So make sure you tell him what you think of him in the comments. He loves reading those.
This is quite a lot of ones. I think my favourite ever one was on the first episode I ever did, where some guy was like, I looked at him and I thought, he's going to have some opinions I agree with. Then I didn't agree with a single one. What's his problem? I was like,
it's kind of how I felt when I met Gav, to be honest. So yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you comment make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys.